After 188 tracks, 46 cups, and 7 games, we have finally made it to the last game, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the game that has 96 tracks in total, 3 times the amount of a normal Mario Kart game, and somehow it is still popular 9 years later. I mean, where do I start? The graphics for this game are amazing, and the soundtrack, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. They had actual live instruments playing, which makes it so much better, for most tracks. The big new feature for this game was the anti-gravity mechanics, and honestly, I found it to be disappointing for many tracks. I will say it works for some tracks, like Dragon Driftway or Big Blue, but most of them don't change the race at all, or they're placed at a pointless section. It's a shame since there was missed potential and it would have made many tracks better. What's awesome about this game is that we finally have 200cc. Now yes, most of these tracks aren't meant for that speed, but that's perfectly fine for me because 200cc isn't meant for beginners, and you will have to learn how to use brake drift at certain points. Now on to the character selection. The original 8's roster was not good. Like, look at the middle row. 5 baby characters, and then you have the worst Mario Kart character Nintendo made. Pink, Gold, Peach. Saying her name disgusts me. Anyway, at least in 8 Deluxe, they added ones that should have been added in first place. For example, Dry Bones, Bowser Jr., and more. And we got more from the Booster Course Pass, which makes it better. And lastly, the tracks. Without the original DLC packs and Booster Course Pass, the track selection I would say is fine at best. They're not bad by any means, but they're not as iconic as some of the other tracks in the series, for me. Looking back on the original 32 tracks, it looks naked, like it felt cursed. Let's get started on the ranking. While there are 96 tracks, none of them are in F tier, which is honestly quite impressive, but there are ones I hate. Here we go! Oh yeah, before I forget, there are going to be tons of controversial placements that I guarantee you won't like. 96. N64 Toad's Turnpike. I know I said none of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tracks belong in the F tier, but this track was really close. There is almost nothing positive I can give for this course. Remember the beautiful sunset in the background? Yeah, that's gone now, and just regular old night. Dodging cars and trucks were sort of difficult in the original, how about here? You can easily dodge them and actually trick off of skateboards on cars. It's so bad. They turned some of the wall into anti-gravity sections with boost panels. It legit makes the course easier and more boring. The music doesn't feel the same as anymore. It amazes me how hard they ruined this track. The only good thing about this course is that you can glide over the bridge, which is kinda cool. Otherwise, yeah, don't remake this course again, Nintendo. 95. Water Park. When I was younger, I didn't mind this course, but now whenever this course gets picked online, it legit makes me not want to play this game. It's so boring, just like Toad's Turnpike. Like seriously, you take such a fun theme and give a layout like this? This course feels like it's there to reintroduce the underwater mechanics. I will say the anti-gravity section is used properly, but unfortunately used just for a long drift. There's a shortcut through the cups and you dodge Ferris wheel and that's it. If it had more opportunities for people to trick, for example the stairs at the beginning, I would probably rank higher. Anyway, let's move on. 94. 3DS Toad Circuit. It's Toad Circuit, baby! Let's fucking go! Okay, I do realize that this was Mario Kart Tour's tutorial course, but even still, why would you bring this back, Nintendo? In all honesty, I think the layout is fine, but the reason why it's in D tier is that this is the ugliest course in the game. Like, look at the grass textures, it legit looks so bad. It's worse than the original. Now that's embarrassing. I guess that's the consequences of being in Wave 1. 93. GBA Sky Garden. Man, I've been waiting to rank this course ever since that Super Circuit video. I don't think I hate a remake more than this course. Let's just start with the positives. Graphics wise, I think it looks fine for a Wave 1 track. And the music, even though it's kinda modernized, it's still a banger. Now I'm gonna start ranting. What the fuck have you done to the layout, Nintendo? Seriously, I can't believe how much they simplified the layout of this course. It wasn't even that long to begin with. I could blame Tor for this, but still that's laziness even for Nintendo. but the gameplay is fine, right? No! What the fuck is that placement with the mushroom? It feels like I'm actually going to fall off the edge for some reason. Also, what is this so-called shortcut at the beginning with the leaves? It's not even faster and it's placed so odd. Oh god, I can't take this anymore. The shortcut at the end is fine, but I mean most tracks have at least one shortcut, so that means nothing. Let's move on. 92. Tour Sky High Sunday. So here we have our first new tour track of a DLC, and unfortunately it was a big misfire for me. I like the theme here, but why does it have to be an oval once again? Seriously, a 3-year-old can come up with a more interesting layout than this. But that's not my biggest issue here, it's the usage of anti-gravity. The whole floaty physics do not work in this course, especially the staircase section, which just feels off to drive. And then you have the slope section where when you trick, you can't see where you land, which I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And it just comes off unnatural, and I can't really enjoy this course, unfortunately. 91. Bone Dry Dunes. I've tried to like this course for a long time, but it's just not for me. Now compared to other desert tracks, this is a lot different, but I don't like the color scheme here. The first section is fine, but once you enter the sand section, this course just becomes unfun to play. It's tight and bumpy, and then the road splits in the worst way that I gotta brake drift in order to go on to the anti-gravity section. I'm sorry, but that's just poor road design. Also, I gotta mention that nobody takes the higher path since it's like so hard to get up there, and no one takes it. 90. Wee Koopa Cape. Yep, I hate this course. When I saw the Wave 5 trailer, I knew I had a bad feeling about this. So why do I hate this? First off, the charm from this course is gone. No Koopa sign at the beginning, and the color of the water looks so washed out compared to the other versions. But my second big issue is the fact that they downscaled this course for some reason. I legit don't understand why they did that. This is a game with 12 racers. Why does it need to be shortened? Third is the waterfall shortcut at the end. You're not supposed to do that section without Shroomless, and yet you can. Notice how I didn't talk about the underwater pipe section? That's actually the least offensive part of this course. They still removed the zappers and then added spin boost pillars, and a half pipe which just feels out of place. So this is why I hate this course and it earns that spot. 89. GCN Dry Desert. Why did they have to remake the two worst tracks from Double Dash? Somehow this track is more boring than the original. They took away the tornado, pit plant, and big pokies, all the charming elements from the original, and also they changed the last section of the track which were dunes into an oasis, where you can drive underwater. I understand they wanted to make the last section more interesting, but now the desert is not dry anymore. It's honestly a poor remake for me, and the pillars on the ground can't save it. Luckily that's all the D tier, now on to the C tier, which are tracks that range from mediocre to okay. 88. GBA Sunset Wilds. Look, I know this is a poor remake of the original, and I strongly agree, but it's not the worst of all. Obviously I hate the sun that doesn't set in this version unlike the original, and even in the tour remake. In terms of gameplay wise though, it's fine to me. Yeah, they simplified the ending with ramps, and the mud is off-road for some reason. It's not a track that I hated the first time I played it. Even though the Shy Guys don't latch onto you anymore, I like that the Shy Guys are now dancing, which is cute, and the music is nice as well. But man, if you're gonna take the best part of the course out, why didn't you remake another like Cheap Island? That's an underrated one, and it's in tour. 87. Ice Outpost. Congratulations Ice Outpost, you won the award for being the most mediocre track of all time. This was part of the original DLC for Mario Kart 8, which had many bangers, and they made this? Really? This is arguably the most boring theme they could have done, and the gameplay doesn't help. The two-way tracks got so old to me due to the number of times they've done for this game, and it isn't in the most exciting way. There are multiple shortcuts that lead you to the icebergs, and I never feel satisfied going on it. Not the worst time, but it will leave you forgetting. 86. Tour Tokyo Blur. I'm someone that's actually a fan of this Tour City tracks, but this one is easily my least favorite. I'm partially Japanese and I don't understand why Nintendo decided to make one of the laps a Japanese highway. I get this is one of the first city tracks they made, but there's also New York Minute, which is so much better than this. It's a passable enough track with some bumps to dodge. The best part for me was going through the Kaminari Mon gate in lap 2, since I've just gone there last year, and it's cool up close. Otherwise, yeah, there's nothing special to it. 85. SNES Mario Circuit 3. Seriously, Nintendo, why do you keep bringing this course back? There's nothing special to it. You have other SNES tracks and you decided to bring back the one that has a sharp turn. I will say it's the best version of this track, which isn't saying much, but they could have improved the aesthetics if anything. Just go watch my Mario Kart Wii video for my thoughts of this track honestly. 84. Tour London Loop. So when I played this track for the first time, I was impressed by how good the music is, and the Chain Chomp released on lap 3 is so awesome. After playing it so many times though, yeah, this track is kinda boring. I've never been to any part of Europe, so I don't know if it's accurate or not, but the track is not very interesting to look at. My biggest issue though is the road is too wide and the course is too long for a city track like this. Sorry to all the British viewers watching. 83. GBA Cheeseland. Another GBA track I'm not a fan of. Don't worry, this is the last one. This isn't as offensive as the other ones, but instead has other problems. The biggest one being the aesthetics. They took all the unique attributes like the mice, and it took place on a moon-like planet, and turned into a generic desert themed track where there's too many broken shortcuts. I don't like when Nintendo does that. Now I'll say I do appreciate the other elements like the cheese holes and blocks to go through, but man, I hate it when this track gets picked online because people bagged for good items. Thankfully, that's nerfed now. 82. Wii Wario's Gold Mine. Yup, another controversial placement. This is one of the few tracks where I didn't want anti-gravity to be applied onto this course. What I liked about the original is the difficulty of going down and up the slope, which is only in the first slope, and everything else is anti-gravity, and they decided to hitting the minecarts is now okay. Like, what the hell, Nintendo, why did you do this? It's such a pointless change, and it really detracts my enjoyment out of the course. 81. SNES Donut Plains 3. This is a great looking SNES track, but the gameplay itself is just okay. You can drive underwater now, which does remove the difficulty, but I'm alright with it, since I'm not a fan of the original, and I like to take that shortcut to avoid that sharp turn. The track is much more enjoyable now for me, not hitting the off-road as much. Overall, it's probably the best you can do out of a Donut Plains track. 80. 3DS Rosalina's Ice World. And we have our first Wave 6 track, and I still don't understand why they brought this track back over Piranha Plant Pipeline. I will say this, I'm glad they added half pipes because this track was basically asking for it, and they added a shortcut at the end, which is nice. There's less icicles in the cave section before, but it doesn't really matter because it doesn't really change my feelings for this track. It's missed potential for me, and the track didn't make it any more interesting. Good remake, still not a fan of this track. 79. Twisted Mansion. I think this is one of the most forgettable courses in Mario Kart 8 because I never hear anyone talk about it. The wavy section is fine, and I like that we go through the library, but I was never really a fan of the underwater section because it felt so out of place for me, and also I don't like driving underwater. Other than that, it's fine I guess. I like the Hammer Knights being possessed by the boost, but that's about it. I was expecting more crazier things with this course. 78. Sweet Sweet Canyon. And we have another dessert track. This one has better gameplay than Sky High Sunday, but it's not special. You go through the canyon and you go right, and then oh my goodness, another split lane. Yay, how exciting. God, I hope Nintendo actually comes up with more creative layout in the next game. This is just another course that's just fine because of the theme. Now we're done with the C tier and now on to the B tier. Yup, I give at least a positive review for the rest of the video. 77. Mario Kart Stadium. I don't know why, but I actually like this starter track. I think it's maybe due to the vibe of this place. It feels more alive than other courses. Now I do agree that the layout isn't any special and it doesn't show off the anti-gravity well, but honestly, I don't hate this course whenever it gets picked online, unless the other options were fan favorites, but you get what I mean. This is honestly my second favorite starter track of the series. 76. Wii Moo Moo Meadows. I've kind of softened up with this course, but it's still not my favorite. I like how it takes place during the sunrise, and obviously the major change for this one is that they added a lane to take a glider and go through the hills, which honestly I like it, and it provides a different kind of feel going through there. You can also trick off the mold trails, which is enough to deservedly put in the B tier. 75. Tour Paris Promenade. The very first tour track introduced in the Booster Course Pass, and for being simple, I think it did its job. The course reintroduces racers going the opposite direction as you, something that hasn't been around since the DS version of GC and Luigi Circuit. It was very refreshing to see since I wasn't sure how they were going to combine all the variants, and this course just works well. Besides that, I don't mind the wide road, and the turns feel satisfying enough. It's a good tour track. 74. Tor Pronopan Cove. Man, I really wish I could rank this one so much higher, but unfortunately this track dragged too long. There were so many parts of the track that didn't have obstacles, especially lap 3. I know it is a slow-paced course after all, but it could have been a lot better. I will say this, I really like the theme and music, and definitely lap 2 is the best since you can drive on top of the ruins, and you go underwater and dodge swamps. But man, if we could trick off of eels, which that was in Tor, it could have been so much better. 73. Excite Bike Arena. And now we have a track where competitive Mario Kart players do not like this track. It's pretty understandable why, but I always have fun with it. I just find tricking multiple times during the straightaway is very satisfying, and I like how the track changes every time a race starts. That is probably the reason why I enjoy a lot, though I heavily agree it's repetitive, and that's why it holds back, but otherwise this is a nice crossover track. 72. Mario Circuit. Yes, we're actually talking about the actual Mario Circuit for this game. This is basically Figure 8 Circuit but a billion times better, and one of the few tracks where it uses anti-gravity properly. I enjoy playing this a lot, just to do a purple mini turbo. It's just fun to go such high speed. Other than that, it's nice to take a big shortcut through the sand and they're stacking Goombas, which that's epic. 71. DS Cheap Cheap Beach. I wasn't a fan of the original, but the visuals make this course 1,000 times better. I mean, wow, the first time I played this, I was blown away by how beautiful this track looked, especially with the water since it looked very realistic. The track is also much better since you can trick off the ramps now, and that's all it needed. 70. Tor Merry Mountain. This is the first Christmas themed track Nintendo has ever made. I'm surprised it took that long. Anyway, yeah, I love the theme of this track. You're able to go onto the railway bridge at the beginning, which is just fun to be on, and I love the presents and candy canes in the background. What unfortunately holds back is the top of the mountain. There's nothing but coins and spin booth pillars. That's honestly a lame way to end. They could have had booth panels and snowman or even Shy Guys snowboarding to make it more interesting. Oh well, still an enjoyable track. 69. Tor Los Angeles Laps. While this track may seem like another city course for many people, I like it. The beach is very nice and I like how you glide through the stadium and go through the oil field. It's better than going through the city all the time. My biggest issue with the track is the song. Admittedly, I hated the original song, but the more I listened to, it became so bad but so good. However, with 8 Deluxe's version, it's less energetic and some of the identity was kinda lost. If they combined the original and 8 Deluxe's version of the song, it would have been perfect for me. 68. Tor New York Minute. I remember playing this track when Mario Kart Tour was first launched, and I always wanted this track to be remade in the future Mario Kart, and they decided to bring it in the booster course paths, which I'm very happy. I love the jazzy feel of this track, and the red carpet is very cool to drive through. That's probably the most positive thing I can give this track. Yeah, the layout isn't special since it's the first tour track to be made, but I always have a good time, so I can't complain. 67. GBA Mario Circuit. I wasn't a fan of this track when I was younger, but after playing more online and playing the original version of this track, I appreciate it a lot more now. What used to be just a bland circuit track was greatly improved because of the anti-gravity U-turn section, which is reference to Ultra Hand, which is a toy Nintendo made in the 90s, which was very unexpected but welcoming. That change makes the track feel more dynamic. 66. Wii Daisy Circuit. I don't have much to say about this course other than being a good enough remake. I like how you have to have a booth to go through the staircase, and the booth panels towards the end is nice. Not sure why they brought this course back in the last wave, but the track itself is better than the original. 65. Tor Rome Avanti. One of the last 2 city tracks for this game, and this one is just fine. The graphics are easily the best part of this course, and they have come a long way from Wave 1. There are many straightaways, but they managed to put interesting things in the background to make it stand out. The best part of the track for me was the Coliseum, where you take the ramp to go up on lap 1, and the chain chomp spawning in lap 3. Other than that, there's not much in here that's very interesting, other than it's carried because it's in Wave 6. 64. Wii Coconut Mall. Please don't kill me for this. I originally was gonna put this in the C tier, but because Nintendo made it so the cars drift around, I gotta respect them for that. But yeah, it's once again a disappointing remake from Nintendo. While this track may look better than the 3DS version, the color scheme is off. Like, why orange of all colors to choose from? It just feels off and unnatural. Other than that, it has the same problems as the 3DS version, except the parking lot is somehow more easier than before. An unpopular opinion, but I'm not a fan of this version of the song. It's still kind of enjoyable to play, but I miss the chaos of the original. 63. Animal Crossing. Look y'all, I love how for each race the seasons change, which is honestly the best thing about this course, and the item and coin sound effect is unique and all, but the layout is just boring for me. I'm someone that thinks simplicity isn't a bad thing, but this course in particular is not for me. It is enjoyable playing it online, but otherwise I don't have this track in the top tier. 62. 3DS Rock Mountain. I didn't expect this track to return, but it's a good thing they did since it's not talked enough. How is it? Well, it's just fine. I'm not as much of a fan of the gliding mechanic in this game since I don't think you can control as much compared to the 3DS, and also the graphics for this course aren't that great compared to other tracks. The spin boost pillars during the steep hill is nice, but other than that, it's the course that I haven't thought much about until this ranking. 61. Tour Vancouver Velocity. This track for me is very tough to place because I love how he got a Canadian themed track, which I don't live there, but it's awesome as a Canadian. I love how he got to drive on the Capilano suspension bridge and going through ice rink, but the most frustrating part of the course was how they structured the course. I think they should have saved the bridge section for last lap because it's easily the coolest part of the track, and with the ice rink, I don't like where the exits are, and they felt off when I first played. It just didn't flow well, and I've played the tour version too, so I feel like they could have come up a better way to flow properly. 60. SNES Rainbow Road. We finally have our first Rainbow Road track, and this is the most recurring track alongside SNES Mario Circuit 3, except this is much better. The one thing this track does better than the 3DS version are the waves Swamps produce. That's better, but unfortunately the track is easier. Yeah, so they made the track wide for some reason. I wish it didn't take place on Earth. That was the one thing I loved, but now just like 8th Rainbow Road, the feeling is kinda lost. Also, I'm not a fan of how the music is modernized. 59. Rainbow Road. I was very looking forward to this game's actual Rainbow Road because of better graphics and more opportunities to make it crazier, and then unfortunately it didn't live up to the hype. This was honestly a big disappointment for me the first time I played it. By making the theme around spaceships, you kinda lose the magic and the music doesn't really help, even though I actually like the song. But what's also a disappointment for me is the layout. Once again, it's another two-way path once you get past the conveyor belt arena. Coming off of 3DS's Rainbow Road, this was a huge downgrade and not inspiring for me. It's not a bad time though. I do like how it's difficult on 200cc since you're more likely to use brake drift on the first few turns. 58. Wii Movie Highway. Man, Nintendo loves bringing Wii tracks back. This track is arguably the best remix in the whole game, and the track gets me hyped whenever it's playing. The jazz section is just mwah, so good. That's unfortunately the best part of the course. The difficulty on this track has been reduced a lot. I seriously hate when Nintendo does that. Like, we already have better controls, there's no need to nerf the track more. Anyway, it's one of the few tracks where the music really elevates this track. 57. Tour Madrid Drive. The last city track of the Booster Course Pass, and it ends on a high note. I love this song so much, I've been addicted to it ever since it came out on tour, and it's even better now since it's orchestral. This track allows you to go to different places like the shopping mall, stadium, and the museum, which you're only there for like a few seconds unfortunately. While I enjoy this track a lot, my biggest issue is that some sections do feel boring. Like the beginning of lap 3 until just before the stadium, there's not much there other than an off-road shortcut. Otherwise, it's a solid enough city course, and I like how the ones kicking the soccer balls are the shoe Goombas. 56. N64 Choco Mountain. For a Wave 1 track, this has always been solid to me, but often forgotten because there were other tracks that overshadow this one. This track is just as charming as the original, but the big difference with this one is that the cave section is more interesting. While it was just another tunnel in the other version, this one has gems on the wall and shortcuts, and then you take the glider to the boulder area. This greatly improves the track while at the same time respecting the original. 55. Dolphin Shoals. I loved hearing that jazzy music when I first played this track. Oh man, those saxophones really went hard. After playing more online, well, it's not one of my favorite tracks. I like the beginning where you go through rings and makes dolphin noises, but the pipe section and going on the eel feels a bit janky. Like it doesn't feel that satisfying driving like that, and would rather stay on the ground. With the pipe section, I was honestly confused the first time playing because I didn't know where to go. Stuff like that, I feel like routing could be better. 54. Swamp Ruins. This is easily the best of a Mushroom Cup, and it's easy to see why. The theme is really interesting, where you're above the clouds and exploring what's inside the ruins will never not be fun. I really enjoy dodging milestones while at it, and the track makes good use of driving on the wall. Overall, just a solid track that doesn't stick out as much as other tracks, but nonetheless a fun time. 53. 3DS Piranha Plant Slide. Really enjoy the original, but this one is not quite the same. For me, the reason why I really liked the original was how cramped it was, and in 8's version, I feel like some of the feeling was lost, but no big deal. The underwater section is definitely better since I can actually control properly, but then you get to the gliding section and I gotta say I don't like how I can't control much. I loved getting the coin on top of the castle, and that was taken away here, which I was sad. If they didn't take that part out, I probably would have given an A tier. 52. Tor Amsterdam Drift. I think this city track is very underrated. Going through the field with moles and tubes in the background is very pretty, but what makes this track distinct is obviously the music. It has vocals for once, and they sound nice, but there is also an underwater section where if you trick off the air current, you can go up to the canal, which that's neat. These things make the track stand out, and the reason why I put it in high B tier. 51. GCN Sherbet Land. This remake surprised me quite a bit. What was once a slippery track that was difficult to dodge obstacles turned into a fun winter themed track that you can go underwater. You know, I really like when Nintendo actually improves tracks that weren't that good in the original and turn into a whole different track. Oh, you fell off the first ice section? That's alright, you can drive through underwater and actually exit onto the main road. The track is also not as slippery as the original, which is good since it's now playable. This is how you remake a track, unlike some other course. 50. Wild Woods. I love the environment of this course. It looks so visually pleasing, like it reminds me of walking through a jungle when I'm on vacation. It's very lovely. The track may be on the simpler side, but I love the other elements like the stream of water, lily pads, and the working Shy Guys in the background. Speaking of Shy Guys... 49. Shy Guy Falls. Ah yes, the track where Shy Guy sings as well, because man, this might be one of my favorite Mario Kart songs of all time. It is a banger. The track itself is really good, but the last third of the track isn't quite as good as the first two thirds. Going up and down of the waterfall taking the boosts is so much fun since you have to predict which lane is gonna spawn next. If we drove through the Shy Guy mines, I probably would have given this an A tier at least. And speaking of A tier, that concludes our B tier. Yeah, there's many banger tracks in this game and I cannot believe it. But before we move on, let's take a break and talk about battle mode. In 8's battle mode, oh wait, there isn't one. Okay, now that's better. I'm actually not sure the general consensus for 8 Deluxe's battle mode, but I find it's good, though not on the level of DS unfortunately. I love how you have more options to customize how you want it to be played, though they still give you a time limit, at least it's not just 3 minutes. Having 5 modes is awesome, with my favorite being Renegade Roundup because it's so fun either running away and getting people out of jail, or playing the cop catching people, and there's a lot of strategies to it. The tracks themselves aren't as memorable unfortunately, and that's why I don't revisit much, but let's rank them now. Last is Battle Stadium. It isn't that bad, but I'm just not a fan of this kind of layout where the map is big and not much strategies to hide and dodge. Also the theme here is boring. 7th is Luigi's Mansion. Not really a fan of the aesthetics and the music on the stage, though throwing bombs from the top floor can be fun. 6th is SNES Battle Course 1. I feel like they brought back the feather item just for this course. Anyway, it's colorful and it's just the right size being able to hit other people. 5th is Sweet Sweet Kingdom. Much better than Mario Kart Stadium where it's a little smaller and it has many places where you can dodge. Also the course here looks delicious. fourth is Dragon Palace. What I like about this map is how open space it is, and you can have many opportunities to go to the top to hit opponents easier, and going through the doors will never not be fun. Third is Lunar Colony. I just love the low gravity physics on this track, and so it plays a lot different. The track may not work for battle mode, but I always have a fun time. Second is Urchin Underpass. Splatoon themed stage? Awesome! I love how the ink on the floor decreases your vehicle's traction, and there's custom item roulette sound, which makes it better. I feel like that some parts of the stage feel too tight, but otherwise it's a fun time. And at number 1 is once again 3D's Woohoo Town. The track is now in daytime and they changed the music to the resorts theme, and yet I love it. Lots of places to hide, and honestly, this track it just works well with any mode. The fact that you can go into basketball court now is so cool, and that's battle mode. They all range from okay to great at best, and I wish they brought back the Wii tracks, but then I realized they didn't introduce half pipes at that point, so that's unfortunate. 48. N64 Yoshi Valley. Finally, a proper remake for this track. When I played the original, I liked the concept of the track, but it wasn't well executed. None of those problems include in 8's version. It's just a fun course to drive through with some changes they made, like if you take the right at all times, it leads you to a cannon. And also they put guardrails now to make the course easier, which I'm fine with. You can do the massive shortcut after you go through the maze, but that was way too overpowered anyways. The thing that holds back is that once you know the fastest route, you'll never take the other paths again, which the concept doesn't feel as special, but either way, it's such a fun course. 47. Wii Grumble Volcano. This was always a good track to begin with. The crumbling rocks and the volcanic debris all still there. And I like that they added gliding ramp on the first platform after the cave section. The reason why it's held back for me is that I'm not a fan of the textures of this track. It objectively looks better than the Wii, but I miss the bold red color. And also, I kinda miss the janky controls from Wii. I know it doesn't work for this game, but it added to the charm for me. 46. N64 Calamari Desert. They brought back Calamari Desert? Cool. I wonder what they'll do now. Oh my goodness, the tunnel is part of the racetrack now? Yes! Now that is something people have been waiting for a long time, ever since Tor did that in their version. Being able to go through the railroad while also avoiding the train changes the track so much that it makes it a lot better, even though the course itself was already well made. My one criticism with this track though is the addition of the red ramps before you go onto the railroad. It doesn't really play right what was always ground level, but yeah, other than that, a solid remake that greatly improves upon the original. 45. N64 Rainbow Road. Oh man, the first time I played this Rainbow Road, I couldn't believe how magical it was, seeing all the beautiful fireworks and a train in the background, and the music is energetic but still carries that nostalgic factor into it. It was a good decision instead of making it 3 laps, but 1 lap split into 3 sections because it was way too long in the original. And instead of the chain chomps going around the track, they instead were turned into giant balls that you need to dodge on the wavy section, which is great. The only problem with this track is how short it is. Now yes, it is 1 lap, but they also scale the size of the track. If they made it as 2 laps, it would have been the perfect length, but I am honestly happy with the track as it is. 44. Tor Bangkok Rush. After playing this course for the first time, I kinda want to visit Thailand now. I like how instead of starting off with building, we go right into Chao Phraya River, tricking off boats, and go right into a mile-long railway market, which is very different and feel more alive. I really like the BTS SkyTrain Railway section since it allows you to choose which path is faster. Other than that, you use the glider to go through the giant swing and Democracy Monument, and on the final lap, you have the option to bounce on top of the Train 9 Market Ratchada. So many places to explore on this one, though I do have some criticisms, which are the removal of Ink Piranha and going up these stairs feel too tight. But other than that, I love it. 43. Wii Mushroom Gorge. This track was always going to come back in the Booster Course Pass, and it lived up to my expectations. Although bouncing on the mushroom doesn't have the same feel as Wii, it feels better than 7, and I find it so weird that you can now trick off of the edge of the green mushroom. But I guess it's natural for this game. The one thing I loved was that they brought back the iconic gap shortcut in Wii. That is easier before, but I'm still glad it exists. Maybe the mushroom placements feel weird in this cave, but overall a solid remake to the original. 42. DS Peach Gardens. Alright guys, I was very disappointed with this track at first, with the nerfs to the flower patches and how in the chain chomp section you can see what's ahead of you because the hedges aren't tall anymore. And finally, the fact that they allowed players to drive backwards on lap 3 because I was tired of that feature and it felt lazy. But after playing so many times and thought about it, I realized that I'd rather play this track over the previous two versions because it didn't stand out to me in the older games because it didn't look anything special. But now you've got beautiful designs like the peach hedge, and there's a piranha plant before you leave the garden, and gliding over the garden is so satisfying. I didn't know I wanted that. The track looks gorgeous as well alongside the music, so it deservedly belongs in the A tier. 41. Tour Berlin Byways. Oh, I've been waiting for this track a long time because this is my favorite music from Tour because the combination of electrical and classical is so good. And while I love the version of A Deluxe, I'm not a fan of the horn sounds at the beginning. The track is really interesting to drive through as well, and that you go through the Brandenburg Gate and the train station where you have the option to go inside the train, which I never take, but it's awesome that you can do that. I think what holds back this track is that second lap. I think it lasts a bit too long, and they aren't as interesting as other parts of the track. But then lap 3 picks up with womps you have to dodge, and I didn't expect that going in. 40. Tour Ninja Hideaway. Why is this better than the actual city track? Oh right, I forgot the other one was one of the earlier Tour tracks. My bad. Anyway, this course is awesome. The dojo is just so cool to go through. There are 2 entrances and I like how you can choose whether to stay on the ground or on top. The Ninja Shy Guys are a cool inclusion as well. The only part I don't like is towards the end where you drive on the rooftop. I don't like the roof ridges since drifting around the corner feels awkward. That section is better played on Tour than here. 39. DS Shroom Ridge. I did not expect this track to return after 17 years. It was honestly one of the more overlooked courses on the DS, and I'm glad they gave a proper remake. Unlike Moonview Highway, I was fine with this track reducing the number of trucks and cars because it's a windy road and the vehicles aren't spread out, which make it the right difficulty while still having the same magic. I really like the inclusion of the fan towards the end of the track for more shortcut opportunities alongside a gliding ramp on the big field. Although the textures in the background feel a bit incomplete, the gameplay to me is more important, and I can say it's better than the original. 38. Toad Harbor. Now that's a place I would want to visit in real life. Toad Harbor is very relaxing to drive through. You've got a boat in the beginning with a market, U-turns after that with a narrow path on the right, and my favorite portion is where the cable cars are. You can take the anti-gravity section to avoid the chaos, and unlike Merry Mountain, this at least has boost panels and ramps going down the hill. It's a great track and I'd like to see it in the future. 37. GCN DK Mountain. Not gonna lie, I was worried if Nintendo were able to pull it off because part of what I liked the other versions were the bumpiness going down the mountain, and I'd say it was handled better than I expected. It's interesting how they decided it's mandatory to go through the ramps with barrels, which I didn't expect that, and the one change I really like is the shortcut with the gap. Before you had to slow down to get through there, but now there's barriers and you have to drift from the left side to do the cut, which takes more skill and I really like that. My biggest criticism with the remake is that they shortened the bridge, even though I like how you can trick now, and the coin placements feel fan-made for some reason, like they didn't put it at a location that made sense, and instead just spread out. It's probably my least favorite version, but it's still a great track. 36. GBA Riverside Park. Now this is how you remake a Super Circuit track, ladies and gentlemen. It maintains the original vibe of the original, but added new elements that made the track stand out. The patooties are such a great addition. If you use a shell at them, it will drop either a mushroom or a banana, which is so cool. Another change they made is towards the end. It turned into a cave, which makes the most sense. You have these glowing mushrooms on the side, and when you leave the cave, you go through the waterfall, which is how you end on a course. While I wished Lakeside Park Garden instead of Riverside Park, I'm happy with what they did here, and it's a prime example of how to remake a flat track. Oh yeah, last thing, the music slaps. 35. 3DS Neo Bowser City. I mean, what is there to say about Neo Bowser City? I love it. The only changes they made were the addition of spin boost pillars, which actually enhances more, and the graphics definitely improve the futuristic vibe. Playing this track on 200cc can be very difficult, but a lot of fun. Yeah, I've got no complaints. It's a solid track to just drift around. 34. DS Waluigi Pinball. You might be surprised to see me put this track low because I had it in my top 3 for both DS and 7, and that track works in those games, but here it doesn't quite have the same magic. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great track and they didn't make any bad changes other than the fact that they forgot to add the sound effect when you leave the arena, but there's nothing wrong with its aesthetics and the layout. So what's up? Well, it's really a front-running track and there aren't any shortcuts in this game, which is why I placed it lower since this game is known for having at least one shortcut in each track. And lastly, while I do realize this track has the same song as Warrior Stadium, I wish they added other elements to a song, just like Dragon Palace to Dragon Driftway. To be honest, I don't really have the best reasoning, so I'll just say there's other tracks that I'd rather play. 33. GCM Baby Park. Finally, a Baby Park remake that's just as chaotic as the original. Playing online is basically the experience of hell. You don't even know what's happening, and you just have to be lucky enough to not get hit by players in shells. What I love about this remake is obviously it's back to 7 laps, but the course is tilted, and by each lap, the music gets progressively faster and faster, making it more intense, and I love that. It's what Baby Park was meant to be, and even if the Bowser shell didn't return, you can still enjoy the craziness, if that's your thing. I love this, but if you don't like it, that's totally fine with me. 32. Bowser's Castle. Bowser Goes Metal. The track brings back the giant Bowser, and now instead of throwing fireballs, he punches the track, which is a nice change since it gives opportunities to think the best way to go in order to not get hit, and the waves really add to it. Beyond that, there's lasers at the beginning to dodge, along with fireballers and spinners. It really captures that Bowser level, and that was missing from the 3DS version. And so yeah, it's a really solid Bowser Castle track that only had one in this game until Wave 6. 31. GBA Snowland. Oh my goodness, it's actually playable now! The screen shake is removed, and now that I can actually enjoy the gameplay for once. One of my main criticisms in the original, aside from the screen shake, were the lack of obstacles, and it still is, but the road is more narrow and there are penguins sliding around, which is very cute. Obviously with 8 controls, it feels better to drive on, and the road is actually slippery. Pair up with the fun music, and it makes it a really enjoyable track. 30. N64 Royal Raceway. I've always loved this track due to how complex the layout is, and the big boost. And this remake exceeded my expectations. It is very satisfying to race on, with many turns that may require brake drifting on 200, and the big jump is turned into a gliding section, which is so much better. The only criticism that I have is that you can't go to the Peach's Castle, boo! Oh well, even without that, the course is very enjoyable, and it always puts me into a good mood. 29. 3DS Music Park. What a great choice to bring back, Nintendo. Not much has changed with this track except the bouncy music notes. They actually stay on beat instead of just randomly bouncing in the original, which is better because I think it flows better. The only part of the track I don't like is the turn after you bounce on the tambourine. I feel like that turn is too tight for me. Maybe it's a skill issue for me, but either way, it's a great course. 28. Tour City Sprint. Even though it's from Wave 2, I still consider this track to be one of the best city tracks because of the gameplay. With other city tracks, there are sections where I can be either too tight, wide, or confusing where to go, but with City Sprint, it flows really well. It covers the locations well, such as the Sydney Opera House and Harbour Bridge, while also making it enjoyable to race on. And this is one of the best examples. Tricking through the multiple ramps on the Harbour Bridge feels so satisfying, and the best thing is that you can do it twice. 27. Electrodrome. I've mistakenly called this course Electrodome for many years, and honestly, it sounds better than Drome. Anyway, this track is also a music level and it has much simpler layout than Music Park, but I find this to be more enjoyable to race on. I like the wide road and the piranha plants at the side, and unlike most tracks with two ways, this one changes the music and the road gets all fancy, and driving on it leaves you with transparent squares on the ground. That is very cool. The steps that make noise before gliding makes the ending a lot cooler. If I'm in the mood for some club music, I will pick this track. 26. DS Mario Circuit. I know people are upset that this track made it in over Airship Fortress, and I understand that because that's my favorite DS track, but I'm glad they brought back what I consider to be an underrated track. I've always liked this one due to the more unique layout, but also the piranha plant are spitting fireballs at you, which can be a bit difficult at first, but my favorite change is right after where you're in a forest and the Wiggler is sleeping until around lap 2 or 3. It is so much more interesting than what was a simple turn in the original. I love driving on simple tracks like these. 25. Sunshine Airport. I love going to airports when I go on a vacation because there's so much to look at, and this course delivers, mostly. I love how in the first section, you avoid crates on conveyor belts, and then you go either under or go inside the plane. Once you go through that, you boost before going up, just like how a plane takes off. I like what you did there, Nintendo. Also, it's kind of funny how the sounds become muffled after taking off. And lastly, you go down and make some turns, and that's it. I love this track, but I really wish we get to explore the airport more. Like, I thought it was a wasted opportunity to not put moving walkway there. It could have made it more interesting. Oh well, at least we now have an airport track. 24. Wii Maple Treeway. So glad it's back. Prior to this course, this game didn't have any tracks that had half pipes because it wasn't introduced yet, but now we do thanks to this track being the first. Just like the 3DS version, this track is easier than the original, but it's not a bad thing and you can enjoy the view, and that's certainly true for 8 Deluxe. The Wigglers feel smaller than before, but I'm fine with that. I wish they brought back the Jack-Off Bridge in this one, but it's not a big deal. 23. Mute City. I can't believe we got an F-Zero track in Mario Kart. I guess if they are making another one, this is the best alternative. I will say the first time I played it, I wasn't as much of a fan because Big Blue exists, but now that I've played more, I get it now. The first section is an adrenaline rush where you try and hit every boost panels. After you go through a corkscrew, there's a big jump, and I like how on each side there are pit areas to collect coins to increase your speed. And final thing worth mentioning is the big shortcut towards the end. I feel it's a bit overpowered, but pretty fun to just float there. While the layout is very simple, it's a thrill ride from beginning to end. 22. Tour Squeaky Clean Sprint. A course that takes place in a bathroom? Sign me up! There's so many things to look at with this course. I mean, you start off taking a dip into a sink, and then you go right into a bathtub that has hula hoops and a rubber ducky. You go to the left side to go on to the sponges, and after that you can go down in the drain, which is probably my only criticism with this track, how janky it is, but still a good time. Once you get out, there's a giant fan that can push you to the side, and when you take the glider, you can trick off the toilet water to go to the top route, which is so disgusting that I love it. It's a great track that's not too long or short, and the 70s jazz style really fits this track. 21. GCM Waluigi Stadium. Can't believe it took that long before Nintendo remade another Double Dash track. Anyways, I always loved this course in Wii, and I didn't know what to expect going into this remake. The last thing I expected was using a half pipe to take another route. I feel like it was unnecessary in the first one, but I really like the second one. That one actually allows you to take the glider through the fire bars. Other than that, it's just fun tricking off multiple ramps, and the night setting actually makes the track look prettier. I dig this one. 20. DS Wario Stadium. I prefer this stadium track over the Waluigi one because of two major changes that enhance the track more. I gotta admit, it felt a little off turning the mud section into an anti-gravity section at first, but now I love it. It feels more alive than the original, and I'm cool with the water section as well. Makes it look like Wario is rich. This is one of those courses where I appreciate more over time. 19. Cloud Top Cruise. Taking parts of Sky Garden and Airship Fortress with Super Mario Galaxy 2 music makes it one of the best nitro tracks for this course. You first drive on clouds, bouncing off mushrooms and go around the airship, and then this is my favorite part of the track. Driving through the storm is so much fun because you've got to figure out which boost panels to take without getting hit by a thunderbolt. Once again, planning things ahead. Lastly, there's that shortcut you take on the leaves, and it can be really hard to pull it off at first, but when you can do it, you'll feel like a pro. 18. Super Bell Subway. This track is not talked about enough. Driving through the tunnels while avoiding the trains coming to you is so much fun. I love how the track is very tight, but allows you to take shortcuts or even go to the top lane to drive on top of the train. Oh yeah, and the train station is used very well, that's not too short, and I like how there's automatic barriers as well going in and out of the tunnel. Such an amazing track. 17. Dragon Driftway. One of the best tracks that uses anti-gravity. It's a very curvy track, and it makes sense since Chinese dragons have a really curvy body, making the track's theme and layout very interesting, and it always stood out to me in the original DLC. 16. Tour Athens Dash. I've been waiting this course for a while since I actually started playing Tour again around that time, and it really lived up to my expectations. First off, unlike most city tracks, this focuses more on the ancient ruins in the city, and they have the buildings placed in the background, which was a smart decision since it's awesome to go through the Pantheon, a street resembling Monostoraki, and of course the Theater of Dionysus, which that part required brake drift to avoid hitting the walls, but still cool to drive through. Every section of the track is very interesting to drive through, unlike many tour tracks, and it feels satisfying to race on. 15. 3DS Rainbow Road. I am so glad this track was brought back for Wave 3. It was the perfect track to end off 2022. The track itself is so stunning. I mean, look at the road and background. They really capture the original well. While it's very faithful to the original, I don't think it quite captures the same magic of the original. The music of course is very good, but the move section feels too electric, and with the gameplay, there's nothing wrong with it except it feels a bit empty, and the turns before going onto the moon is not quite as sloped as the original. Even though I gave lots of criticisms, it doesn't take the fact that it's amazing. It's kind of hard to capture the experience of the original, so while it is a bit of a downgrade, it's still very exciting to play. 14. 3DS DK Jungle. Honestly, this was the perfect track to bring back for 8 Deluxe. The reason for it is that the controls work perfect for this game. Like the narrow gliding section where the frogs are, it works much better in this game, and the tricks are so satisfying. The banana is so beautiful in HD. Yeah, I barely have any criticisms for this track, it's just so fun to play every time it gets picked online. 13. Wii Rainbow Road. While I consider 3DS Rainbow Road to be the better Rainbow Road track, in this game I prefer to play the Wii version over the 3DS version. This was the perfect pick to end off the Booster Course Pass because come on, it's gotta end on a high note, and it did. The track and the music is so beautiful from beginning to end, from the iconic cannon to the half pipe where you can actually turn really tight and save so much time. That's funny. Oh, and they kept the effect of characters burning when you fall off, which they didn't need to do that, but I'm so glad they did. What unfortunately holds back from the S tier is that it's a lot easier than the original. Now yes, they put a barrier after you take the first jump, but also the entire track is anti-gravity, which feels a bit weird, but at least you're able to go over the big circle gap and take shortcuts that were in Wii. Speaking of S tier, that's what we will be talking about next. These courses are some of the best tracks in remakes of all time, and it was really hard picking the next 12. 12. GBA Boo Lake. Finally, a proper version of Boo Lake that actually has a lake. It was honestly a very lackluster course in the original, but now it lives up to its name. Before I talk about the gameplay, I gotta say, I was surprised by how good the remakes for this course. It's not particularly creepy, but it slaps. With the gameplay, it has anti-gravity, you can trick, there's dry fishes you can touch, a shortcut that you need some sort of boost, and the course is tilted. This is everything I wanted from a remake, and it deserves to be an S tier for receiving the biggest glow up. 11. GCN Daisy Cruiser. I mean, what more can I say about this course? All it needed was some touch-ups and good to go. I love how in the pool there's Goombas floating around. It annoyed me at first because I kept hitting them and sent me into the wrong direction, but I got over that. And in the dining area, Yoshi's, Toads, and Shy Guys are sitting down, which makes the track feel more complete. It's basically the perfect version of this course. 10. SNES Bowser Castle Free. I never thought I'd see a day where an SNES track goes in the S tier, but here we are. This is as perfect as you can get to a remake of an old Bowser Castle. This is the first SNES track to include anti-gravity, which I'm surprised they were able to use it. I love how in the first section, if you go to the left side, there's a lava geyser where it's easy to hit, but it's just enough so that people can go through without getting hit. But the best part of the track is the free lane with walled off road. It's so fun going on top of these things because you're up so high. The thwomps are placed very well, especially the ending, where if you're lucky, you can get the coin and trick off of them. Lastly, they didn't need to make the music go so hard. Holy hell, it's amazing, and the amazing background really adds to it. It's a masterpiece, and it made me wish every SNES track was like this. 9. GBA Ribbon Road. Alright, I think we all know why this is an amazing course. Turning what took place in a present land and now in a bedroom with different toys and presents? I don't know who come up with that, but whoever did, you're a genius. The turns were really satisfying in the original, and the same goes to here. They added Mecha Koopas on the road, and the turn after that, the road gets really wavy. There's a difficult shortcut that I always fail, but I like that it's made out of wooden blocks. And the gliding section, you try and dodge 2 Jack-in-the-Box Koopa clown cars. That is so creative. I actually do have a criticism, and that's the music. It doesn't sound bad, but I miss the original vibe of the song, since it sounded so different compared to other tracks. Even still, this doesn't ruin my enjoyment at all. The best GBA remake in my opinion. 8. Wii DK Summit. This is one of the Wii tracks I was so glad they brought back because taking the half pipes on this one is so awesome, along with the bumpy hills. The two things I never expected with this track are keeping the double shortcut in the middle and making the music a banger. I thought they would go for the Mushroom Gorge route, but nope, they made it rock. It's so good. If I were to be nitpicky, I'd say the can section isn't as cool, but I didn't care that much anyways. 7. Tour Singapore Speedway. This is to me the best tour track ever made. I mean, just look at the visuals. It is so stunning, especially when you get to the roof of a Marina Bay Sands and the water geysers. While I really love City Sprint, the visuals weren't the biggest highlight for me, but the layout is just so interesting. After the rooftop, you go through the rings and go onto the field, and on lap 2, you get to go through Chinatown, and which has its own music, which was one of the highlights in the original version. Lap 3, you go through the conveyor belts, which actually lives up to the name Speedway, and you're able to go different paths after you take the glider, which really enhances the track. This track combines the best elements to make the track a masterpiece. 6. GCN Yoshi Circuit. Even without the hidden shortcut halfway through the track and no Yoshi helicopter, it still remains as one of the most fun tracks in the entire series. I mean, every drift is satisfying, and I'm so glad the proper piranha plants are back. And I like how the shortcut at the beginning has waterfall blocking the view from the other side. It's a track that fits better in this game more than in Double Dash. 5. Mount Wario. Oh, I've always loved this course when I was younger. Going down the mountain for the entire race while splitting into 3 sections is a pretty simple concept, but it made it into a very special track. There's so many turns to make, you deal with many obstacles like the icy road over streams, and even trees, which I'm pretty bad dodging, but it's always a fun time. Lap 3 is easily my favorite since it feels like you're snowboarding with many tricks, and then you take the boost panels to try making the biggest jump as possible, flying through the rings, and after that, well, that's it. It's so satisfying every time I play it, and even if I get Mario Karted on this track too often, I've always had such a fun time, and that's what this course delivered. A journey down the mountain, easily one of the best tracks of all time. 4. Tour Yoshi's Island. I love that we are getting tracks from other Mario franchises, and they really did a phenomenal job creating this island with so many references. It always puts you in a smile playing it. You dodge stilt guys and huff and puffins, go in the water tricking geysers, through the cave and going up the glider over the volcano, and after the cloud section, there's a winged cloud moving left and right, and if you hit one, it'll spawn a red bridge, which is one of the coolest things Nintendo's added to a game. It's a bit of timing and strategy in order to get that. It's so good. They didn't need to go that far, but they added custom music before and after the race ends. It is truly an amazing experience. Honestly, I wish it was longer, because if it was, it would have been in my #1 spot, I think. 3. Hyrule Circuit. When I played this course for the first time, I was blown away by how good it was. And I'm not really a Legend of Zelda fan, but the music, the castle, like holy shit, this is beautiful. And the spin boost pillars, they're not just used to spin you around. No, if you hit all 3 of them down the stairs, a boost panel will spawn and you can hit the sword, which is so cool. The rest is very good as well, going through a valley with Deku, Babos, and Keith. All these references were perfectly placed, and it makes it not only one of my favorite crossover, but the best circuit track of all time. 2. DS TikTok Clock. This is one of the few tracks that I would say is a flawless remake. The original was already amazing as well, but looking back at it, it looks like a beta version, which this one feels the complete version. The atmosphere is incredible, like the starting banner is shaped like an old clock. They also decided to add another pendulum to the track. The gliding section is great because the rotating gears, which are red and blue on the ground, can now be tricked. The final turn before the straightaway serves as a tricky shortcut, and the gears going up and down can now be tricked. It's perfect. There's no criticism I would give. There's just one more course I prefer to play. 1. Big Blue. Before making my list, I already knew my top and bottom spot of the list, and there was no contest with Big Blue. This track is Muse City but infinitely better in every aspect. The music rocks so hard with the crazy track design, it leaves me excited from beginning to end. It has all the elements from Muse City like the pit area, but what makes it more epic is the rushing water. You go crazy fast on those things, and every turn is satisfying, leading up to what is the coolest gliding section of all time. And that's not the end. You have the announcer speaking, "Yeah, the final lap," while going through the conveyor belts, and the intensity just goes off the charts, trying to come in at first while you're at the last few corners, and it ends similarly to Mount Wario. This is probably my second favorite Mario Kart track of all time, and I can't believe it's a F-Zero track of all. I just really hope that the next Mario Kart game, Nintendo delivers something like this, or even magical like 3DS Rainbow Road. Anything amazing. Anyway, yeah, this is easily my favorite track from this game, even with the booster course pass. It couldn't top this. Wow, I did it! It's finally done! If you made it this far, well, I gotta congratulate you for watching this far, because this is by far the longest video I've ever made. After the booster course pass, I think I can happily say this is my favorite game in the franchise due to so many tracks being bangers. Thank you so much for watching my Mario Kart series. I really mean it. I am not sure what I will be uploading in the future as of right now, but I may upload other games like Geometry Dash. But I'm definitely going to take a break playing Mario Kart now that the booster course pass is over, and I can rest. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day.